Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Mad Camper and this is another video on Watcher of Realms. Today is my look back on the previous near month gameplay and what I think overall of the game. Before I get into my honest review of how I feel about Watcher of Realms, I want to invite you to do a couple of things. There will be a link in the description, pinned comment, and at the end of the video, and if I remember, somewhere it'll have just flashed on the screen, that'll invite you to go to a channel. Now, this might be a precursor to how I feel about the game, but there's no sense beating around the bush. I plan on making a brand new channel. Well, actually, it's an old channel that I used for those of you who might have watched me play Starfield, or I played Mass Effect Legendary Edition, and a few other things we've played over the years on my second channel that I kind of kept away from this one. But I'm going to change that to Watcher of Realms. And on that channel, I plan to post daily content, or every second day probably to start, of just me competing in the game, summons, as well as certain milestones as I complete them in the game. I also plan on bringing the I Built Them series to this game, though it'll be a lot slower paced than, of course, my original Raid one was, given the fact that there just aren't as many champions in this game. Please feel free to subscribe to that channel where after this video will be exclusively Watcher of Realm content, as this channel returns to 100% Raid Shadow Legends. I'm going to be posting new content for Raid Shadow Legends based on the new content that's coming out soon. So if you're into Raid, stick with me. We're going back onto the main account. We're going to play some stuff, as well as continuing my free-to-play series, which will probably go to every second day going forward, with alternating days being main account, playing things like the new content that's soon to drop. Now on to Watcher of Realms. One last thing I want to tease. The inaugural video, which at this time isn't there yet, but by the time you watch this video should be up on the new channel, will feature maybe a familiar face, but one of the powerhouses in the Watcher of Realms community. So I look forward to sharing that collaboration to kick off that channel with you. Now on to Watcher of Realms. I said at the beginning of this that I would give it an honest 30 days, and then I would give you my opinion on how I felt about the game, what I think of it in many different categories, and that's what this video is. There's no point beating around the bush. The first and foremost, the most important thing to talk about, the thing that I have always harped on, is can it survive in the game space? Now, this is a tower defense game, which is different than the game many of you probably come from, Raid Shadow Legends, or any of the others, which is more of an RPG style game. But make no mistake, they're in the same genre. The genre is a gacha game. It is a collector game. It is about collecting champions, making those champions as powerful as possible, and competing and completing content within the game. How that is done is different in this game than Raid Shadow Legends, but at the very core of it, it's collecting champions. So how does this game compare to Raid Shadow Legends, as well as other ones that are in the game space that have been throughout time? Well, I would say it holds up pretty well. The most important thing to me, aside from actual core mechanics, which if it was terrible, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. The core importance to me is the graphics. Does it look good? I know this seems frivolous, and a game that is amazing does not need great graphics. But in this space, when you're collecting champions, when you're collecting things, those things better be cool. And I gotta say, for the first time since I started playing Raid over 4 years ago, there is finally a game that I can honestly say holds up to the light. Their hero look and feel is exactly what I've been looking for to replace or complement Raid Shadow Legends. And I think that's an important distinction to make. Because this is a tower defense game, and because so many aspects of the actual gameplay are different than Raid, it can easily complement Raid as you play both of them side by side. You won't feel like you're playing the same game twice and therefore get burnt out, because the very nature of this game is completely different than the nature of Raid Shadow Legends. Or perhaps you come from Epic 7, or you come from 7 Deadly Sins, or Calibria, or what's the other? All the other ones also of that scape that all seem to be the same thing. They're just copycats that just couldn't hold a candle to overall what Raid could do. Even the negative overview of what you think of Plarium, this is one that doesn't hold that problem because it's different. Tower defense games are great. They're fun to play, but I have not really played one that has really grabbed my interest in several years. This is different, and it comes down to the look and feel of the champions. I will say that some of the champions are over-sexualized, but that's fine. It's what they do in these games. They are, some of them are they have big jiggle effects. That is absolutely true, but they also look very good. I mean, look at this, for example. Aylin looks regal. She looks majestic. She looks like a divine spirited healer, and that's what she is. Nyx looks like that assassin with the blood red eyes and the elven ears. Looks like could be, I don't know, maybe she's a vampire. There are so many different things that look amazing in this game, and they've really done a service that I feel was missing from all these other copycats that had come into the game space. The graphics here look amazing, and because of that, it makes you want to play. It is something that was missing in every other game that went up against Raid, and it's finally something that we have. So, with graphics out of the way, which I give a high mark to, not only in this, but if you actually go into some of the raids and play, for example, I don't know if I'm missing gear, but we'll just run a fight of Gear Raid 1, which is of course where the area where you get your gear. You'll see that even the backgrounds and the scape and the enemies all have a nice level of detail and texture to them that it doesn't need to overwhelm, but it just needs to impress. It needs to be good. And I believe that this fits that bill. It is good. It looks good. It looks enjoyable to play. The spell animations, the ultimates, everything about this game is very strong. So what next? So it looks good, but look good isn't everything. It plays well, and plays well is important, but it also is easy to understand. It's quite simple, which is something that is often missing from many other games, to understand what you're supposed to do and understand how to do it. That is something that I think a lot of games suffer from. They try to overcomplicate it, or they forget to tell their users how to complete it. And the net result is not really understanding what to do, and it's a level of frustration, and they walk away. This is a completely different system. I believe that in its essence, the tower defense system really gives you a good understanding of what you're supposed to do. You've got crystals. You don't want them to touch those crystals. There you go. From that perspective, this game hits the mark very well. But what about the other areas of the game? What about the game modes? Well, if you go to the main camp, you'll see what you have to offer. You have several different areas that are clearly marked as different things that you need. There's a market. There's usually a daily quest, which I've already done today. There's your daily idle rewards. There's your game mode of Tide. You can summon. The Pantheon is your faction wars. And then you have your campaign mode, arena, Void Rift, which is a weekly rift, even has the date and time, and then of course your basic everyday raids. The way that this game sets its characters is by needing several different pieces to fully imagine your champions. I believe this is one area that they came in much more advanced and much more fleshed out and complete than some of the others that have come into the collector series. For example, you can already put the gear on, get resources, get artifact materials for a special artifact, of course get the gear, play Tide, which gives you a boost to be able to farm. Even though it's kind of a slow level, you're able to farm what the books or the skill ups for the skills, as well as the promotions, which is your ascensions. They've also, from the start, put a way to deal with duplicates through your awaken ability. So let's take a look at a champion. I'll take a look at an epic that I have already completed, just so you can understand all the different areas of the game. The first one is the attributes. The attributes is just going to give you the details of what's going on. It's going to tell you what their stats are, what its attack range is, its attack strike, and of course it's got a global skill, which is an important piece to know. It also has things like how fast it attacks, its speed, crit damage, and all these other pieces. These are what you want to push forward, and it'll explain with a simple click what your total R is in each and what the info of each of those attributes are. It makes it very easy. I will say one thing that wasn't immediately clear, that it took me a little bit to figure out, is some healers heal based on attack stat, and some healers heal based on HP stat. That is completely foreign to me. Other than someone like Lightlock, who does actually deal damage as he heals, the rest of them that are attack-based don't necessarily do attack. So it was kind of counterintuitive to me that there was a stat based on attack that would amplify the heals. Other than that, everything else seems pretty straightforward for all of the champions. The way to upgrade is something I much prefer to the standard grind your champions, level the champions up in a tavern, and so on and so forth. You still do that, but you actually farm experience separately, and then you use the quick star up. I don't have any currently, but anyone, well, let's get some here, and so I can show you what happens. So I can go into here, I can purchase the low levels. I'm also going to purchase these while we're here. So you can go into the hero. You can do it from any hero, but we're going to go back to Idril. And see here, I can automatically, if there were 30 of them, I can do 10 at a time. I do a quick star up, and it stars it up to a level 2. The basic here is that this number, these experience, is how much the experience potions are what you use to level up all champions. Whether it's these, for example, like that, it start up. If there were 20 of these, you do 2 hits, and they're all done. And then you just keep moving up the levels until you go and you get your 4-star to 5-star, and you have your 5-star to level your 5-star champions up to their maximum 6 stars. This is a much cleaner system, but it also makes it so that when you're actually farming XP, there are special areas that you do that specifically. You farm XP, and that way you're not sitting here flipping in and out champions. You can farm right up until you gain champions as you get levels. So as long as your champion bin is not full, you can just keep farming XP. If you're a spender, that means you can actually just put it on auto battles and do 1,000 auto battles and just get a ton of XP that'll give you what you need to level up your first core champions and going forward. It's a it's a much easier system to understand when you know that you just go into the raid and you farm the XP, then you use the XP. You can also use it here. For example, she's at level 53. I don't have enough pots to put her to level 54, but I could level her up in here until she gets to 60. Most of my champions, as you see, I don't do that to. I let them organically get their levels. If they get into a point where one of the champions I'm having problems with, I will level them up to the point where I'm no longer having a problem in that content. There's a few champions that I did that with. For example, my healer Vortex, and I wanted to get Pyros into my clan boss right away, so I had leveled him up to a higher level so that I could use him. Now is the second piece. The second piece is promotions. Promotions is like your ascending champions. It gives you certain things. For example, it may unlock skills, it may increase the range, or just give you extended stats. Most times, this is very important. You want to do this right away. The number of stats you get at each level can be very, very big, especially with some of the bigger champions where you see, for example, I think Leorius had like 3,000 HP for a tank who's taking hits. That can be very big. And that's your base, which means all your multipliers on gear are affected by the base, and it makes them stronger and stronger. The third area is gear. Now, gear is a little bit different than most that I've played, but it's still the same basic idea. There are 2 sets. There is a left side and a right side. In this case, there are 5 total pieces of gear, unlike Raid, which actually has 9 pieces of gear. The gear sets are based on left and right only. There's the left side 2-piece, which consists of a basic, everything's a basic attack, and then you can roll your substats, and then you've got your chest piece, which is always HP, and then you have your substats. Your substats roll in a pretty easy to understand way. For example, here I know that after I plus 4 it's going to unlock defense, then defense bonus. Now, what I typically do is I'll enhance it to 4. If this is a chest that I'm trying to use, for example, the champion we have, you can see what level it goes to. Now, it doesn't give you, it kind of gives you a general indicator of how nice it is, but you can see over here it gives you, that's an extra 14%. Now, in this particular case, I have a defense bonus on him of 24%. So certainly I don't necessarily want to use this, but I may keep it around because it might be good for a secondary healer, so I might even take it up to level 12. Typically, I wouldn't do these sort of things until I was ready to use the gear or during a gear enhancement event, so this was a bit of a waste, but it did show me that I did get a nice little HP bonus. This is definitely a piece that'll probably go on a secondary level champion that I'm not using everywhere, but I'm using somewhere like Faction Wars. So the gear and the big cost, as with everything, and the big stopgap, or one of the big stopgaps in this game, is gold. Gold is hard to come by. You need it all the time, and leveling up your gear from 12 to 16 costs a ton of money. Do not do it frivolously. I would say going to 12 is never a bad idea, but going past 12, it better get good. For example, this piece here could potentially be a game changer. However, it all depends on that first roll. If this rolls low, which it didn't, so this is actually a really good start for a piece. I don't have enough gold, silver. So what I see is I have a very good attack bonus. So now I'm going to need to take that to 12 to at least see what the crit damage gives me. My hope is that it gets to almost the purple. This is one that I might consider if I have a champion that I really need the chest place, especially in the annihilating set. I might try for 16 and see if that gives me a good crit rate, because that'll give me 3 offensive stats that would work with it. So it's a pretty simple system. They do have the gearing sets, like I said, that for example here, this gives you additional crit damage on a 2-piece set. There's also ascension. Certain sets can ascend to badass sets, I guess to call them. So for example, I could take this, and this is what its basic is, but I can turn it into an invigoration if I have 200 of these materials. These materials you won't worry about until the later mid game, because simply put, you cannot farm the level of gear raid to get these drops. At some point you will, and when that happens, then you're going to start looking at your best pieces and turning them into these better pieces of gear, like Immortal Warrior, Invigoration, Infernal Roar. They're the golden sets. So if I were to come into the gear shop here and filter, you can see the gear sets right there, the Warlord, Immortal Warrior, for example. So you can see the special sets that you can make out of it. I haven't done any Ascensions, so I can't speak any more to that other than what we've talked about. As far as what your champions are, it's pretty straightforward as to what you're trying to build. Tanks generally need HP. With certain champions like Regulus here, I would nearly call him Leorius. Raid people would know why. He's kind of also defense, so I have more defense than I normally would. But tanks, typically you want defense. How do I know they're a tank? Well, it just so happens that's what they are. They are a warrior. They're right there. That's a beautiful defender, sorry. Fighters are offensive ground units. Defenders are defensive ground units. Marksmen are pierce damage or physical attack damage. I always want to call it pierce, but it's like, I guess technically it's physical. Healers, self-explanatory, and mages are magic damage. Not always, though. Some marksmen do deal magic damage. I think there's a mage out there that deals physical, and fighters can sometimes deal magic, so you do have to watch at what their skill set says. Speaking of skill set, here it is. You've got your ultimate here, which is kind of what their bread and butter is, and it tells you what it does. Pretty simple. In this case, increases his max HP by 40% while sharing 40% of the damage dealt to allies surrounding him for 12 seconds. Very nice. And then you've got his basic abilities. Periodic rage regen. You've got, for every 14 instances of damage taken, inflicts stun on all blocked targets, dealing 110% damage. And then he's got a passive. When it drops below 10%, he summons Holy Shelter and becomes immune to all damage for 8 seconds, up to 1 time per deployment. So these are pretty simple. All the skills are the same way. You've got upgrades. The upgrades consist of 2 things. There's legendary skill dust, which will get you up to a certain level. And then if you go further, and we'll go back to Idril, right? There's also, it depends on, oh, she's max level, so I can't go to Idril. Let's go to Hollow. I think she's, yeah. So there's also these. Now, epic skill crystals are for epic champions. Legendary skill crystals are for legendary champions. And same with the dust. There's 2 types of dust. There's also rare of both for rare champions. Now, other than that, pretty self-explanatory. It's random as to which one it goes into, and whether or not you should level one up completely or not, well, that's up to you to read and find out via the content creator community. Awakening is how they deal with duplicates. The rule of thumb is you want to get Awakening 5s in any and every champion you have, and especially those you use. That makes it a lot more... fun is maybe not the right word, but it makes it feel a lot less painful when you get a duplicate champion. I know in some other games where when you get a duplicate champion, it feels like an absolute gut punch. That is not the case here. Let me tell you, the day I get a duplicate Silas, I will be partying like it's 1999. And unfortunately, so far I've gotten, which is not a bad thing, I've gotten 2 Cerberus, a couple Regulus, and the dreaded extra Shamir. There are bad champions in this game, but what I will say is a lot of the bad champions in this game are much like other games. They're probably overstated. You can most likely use those other champions, those weaker champions, in a lot of content and get good use out of them. It's just the way that you seem to obtain shards or summons crystals in this game is at a higher rate than other games. Therefore, chances are you will eventually pull relatively quickly a champion that's more useful than the one you've had, you know, the Shamir of the world that you don't necessarily want to build. If we go back to the hero state, there's one other place. By the way, awakenings have very different meanings. Some of them are incredibly amazing, and some of them are just for stats. For example, we have the awakening 1 increases his attack speed by 100 when Shadow Cloak is in effect. Amazing. Then there's a stat. Now here, there's more than 2 marksmen on the field, increases the damage of the hero and 1 random allied by 15, and then just Rage Regen plus 2, and then Mark of the Curse. So all of them will have different things. Sometimes it's just stats, sometimes it's certain skills, sometimes it upgrades the skills. Typically, though not 100%, it's 1, 3, and 5. Getting epic dupes is relatively easy if you're a spender, but even free to play, definitely something that you will do over time. Getting legendary dupes is a little more difficult for non-spenders. Obviously, whales can +5 their heart's content. The final thing is artifacts. Now, artifacts, something you can forge using abilities or using these materials, and then you can level them up. So I can, for example, forge craft an epic here, and I got Consuming Rage, which gives me extra stats as well as some type of skill that's attached to the artifact. You then can level up your artifacts. Certain artifacts are class specific, like the one we are looking at right here, and some are not class, they're just general purpose ones. When you level them up, you can promote, and it requires this this ability. Now, because this is at 10 of a 10, I also need a duplicate of it to be able to promote it. I don't have that, so we're going to keep going. But for example, here I can promote, and I actually do have an extra of it, so I could actually promote this to the next level, which is level 10, and then I can keep enhancing it. As you can see here, we can keep going up to, it looks like 16. In fact, I could probably do I don't have any more duplicates right now. So it's a neat system. It gives you some pretty cool additional, like here now it's, you see what the base was here, which is 5 and 5 with 440, 140, and it's an epic ability. When you go up here, it's still 5 and +5, but you see the stats are higher as it's a level 7. Here, this is the level 10, and it's actually a level 2 artifact. So it got up to 530, 185, but also now increases crit rate by 6%, not 5. And when a crit lands, it increases crit rate by an extra 5%. So it essentially gives me a chance to build her with 11% less crit rate, for example. So that's the character build. The characters look cool. The build's pretty nice. This is fairly standard fare with some nice unique pieces like the Awakening right out the box, and the fact that the skills I find are more usable in this game than they are in other games. A lot of games without skilling up or toming up or whatever it is, some champions are just not as usable. I don't find that the case here. Good champions are good champions with good gear, can do good damage, and only when you put skills in them do they become great, or from great to awesome, or from awesome to god tier. I think that's the way it should be, and I've always lamented about how many other games I've played treat skills like the champion's not good until it gets skills. Well, if I want to pull shards, and from a monetary standpoint, if I want to purchase to pull shards to get all these, or summons, or crystals, or champions, whatever you want to call it, and I get these champions, but they're not really good until I book them, then I'm going to be less wanting to pull every weekend. Whereas on the flip side, if a champion's good out the gate and I can use them out the gate and it only improves their use as I skill them up, that makes me feel better about having, building, and expending possible real life, my honest hard-earned money to build out those champions. With the heroes done, now let's talk about some more of the raids. The raids are pretty standard in how they act. They are tower defense. All of them work out pretty similar with some different things and designs to keep you on your toes, so to speak. I find that the design of tower defense allows a lot more flexibility in the breadth and variety of things you can do in the game. This is something that I think other games struggle for, that a tower defense type game does not. Using different pathing, different monster types, different weaving, different conditions, you can create a completely different game, even with similar levels. Whereas on a game like Raid Shadow Legends, the waves are the waves. You're fighting X number of the enemy, and you're just doing it 2 times before getting to a boss. That kind of cadence never changes. Sure, the champions change and the type of champions, but it all feels the same. It's very formulaic and is very simplistic, whereas this has a little bit more nuance to it and can potentially have a lot more intricacy to it. One of the things I love best about this is in so many different modes, especially as you get into mid and beyond, so many of these modes have this thing where you actually are removing champions from the field of battle and replacing them and placing them in different spots and dealing with cooldowns, because that's how you're going to beat the level. That is something you don't do in a standard RPG wave-based game. That is very unique to tower defense and makes this game so much more fun and diverse as far as content. So even though it is the exact same thing, as I go to each of these different levels, I can see completely different type of map, which requires a completely different strategy. And to me, that makes this game have a way greater variety that makes it less stale. Huge plus for them. So once we talk about that, that's kind of the basics of it. There is a couple different ones. There is Tide. Now the Tide is a completely different thing. I've used all mine, but it's basically just a horde comes at you and you have a whole bunch of your champions and you just kill them. Right now I'm at the rinse repeat phase where it's not very difficult and I just keep pushing. There's going to be a point where it's going to be difficult. It's not very exciting or fun. I think it's a kind of a miss in this gameplay, but overall I think it's okay. The guild arena I used to hate, but I kind of liking it now. Obviously, the version that I'm in, I'm almost in Platinum 3, by the way. The version I'm playing right now does kind of make part of that reason. And it is kind of basic tower defense. It is kind of rinse and repeat. If there's anything that is not diverse, it's probably arena, because unlike other areas where once you've completed, for example, Gear Raid 118, which I'm on right now, once I've completed that, I don't have to think about it. I get a power up. Basically I get 30% to all my character stats, and I can put it on a auto mode for as many auto battles as I actually have on my account. I can purchase auto battles. I can get passes that give me auto battles. I also, with the pass, can get a 3-point time speed boost, which is beautiful. And that means if I can beat it once fully without losing any of the stars, so you get a 3-star or 3 crystal, then I can run it at 30% boosted stats and 3.5 speed, and it's going to be a lot easier for the auto battle to complete the battle. It'll just mimic what you did last time, and it makes it a much more easier to farm and more farmable area. The arena is a little different. Now you can go in and you can allow it to auto battle, but because there's such a diverse difference in what you might have to do. For example, the enemy scales slightly based on what your enemy is, what its level is. So if I'm going up against someone that's 325 versus 266, it's going to be a different story for me, and I may have to do things differently. What I find is right now I'm just auto battling. I think that people, once you start playing around and once you start doing taking over manual control, it is a little bit more fun. But overall, this is probably the most repetitive area. This and the Tide are probably the most repetitive and least exciting parts of the game. I understand when it comes to grinding, there isn't a whole lot of exciting, but this area here feels the most repetitive grind. Typically, you have 5 battles, you gain extra battles, and then of course you get 2 extra battles from the daily idle rewards. If you do 7 battles in a row, it becomes a little bit monotonous. I'm not going to lie to you. I would think that if you could bring, my suggestion would be the ability to bring 6 heroes into the game and being able to choose only 5 of those 6. That gives you a little bit more diversity and would probably get me more likely to play my rounds out rather than just auto battle and hope I don't lose. And if I do lose, like I did against this gentleman twice, then so be it. Then I've lost and move on. But, you know, right now most people are just auto battling or ignoring this content altogether. So it's probably an area they could work on. Now I want to go through my final kind of breakdown. I want to talk about the different areas of the game that I feel are the most important, and I'm going to give them a kind of an overall what I feel it is, you know, based out of 10 type of thing. I'm not going to do a 10 scale, but I'm going to give you kind of a thought overall. The first is the genre. I really enjoy the genre of tower defense, and I believe this fits nicely in the collector genre or the gacha genre that this also puts its feet fully and dips both feet in. I do feel like they don't have near enough epic heroes. It is something that does concern me. When you look at the gallery and you take a look at all champions, they currently have 159 champions, and they are adding champions regularly, which is great because that's how you make the game grow. This game has to put out champions probably a little quicker. I'm a little concerned about its pace on the champions because there's going to be whales out there that have all these champions and have them +5, and they're going to get bored with the game. And I feel like when you have as many legendaries as epics, I think that's a kind of a miss as well. I would also say the third thing is that there, aside from a few kind of gamey examples outside of the early game, there isn't really a rare you're going to use. There might be a couple you'll be forced to use in faction wars or use for a while, but at the end of the day, rares are nothing to talk about. They're very weak. So I do hope that they pick up the pace on the number of champions, or at least keep their current pace so that there's always stuff being added. And I hope that they really consider putting more epics in the game so that there's a more breadth of it, especially, you know, selfishly, because if I'm going to make videos, I build them so you don't have to on epics. I need epics to build. So as far as that goes, I definitely overall think it's got great unique gameplay. It's got a great genre that offers way more variety than the standard rinse and repeat, which does allow for a longer playability without getting bored. The skill system, I think, is it's fine. It's nothing, there's nothing revolutionary in my opinion on this. You skill up your skills, it happens randomly. You have certain materials that you can farm in this game to get those, and it's great. Guild Boss, I think, is again fine. It's a repetitive hit against a very strong overlord. It's good. It's not revolutionary. It's not crazy. It's fun. It's challenging, and I like it. But I don't like it any more or less than Raid Shadow Legends, for example. I like this. What I will say is that Raid is more about a mechanic, because there's a turn meter that you can specifically work through, and there's some immunity type things. It's very more mechanical now. Even the Hydra has a real mechanical. This is just about managing damage output and throughput and doing as best you can on getting that throughput. And that's probably not going to change in this system. So they are different as much as they're a similar thing. They are much different, but I don't think either of them is especially better than the other. Tide is a big miss. Other than that, pretty good. Their market system is heads and tails better than Raid Shadow Legends. They have the black market, which has some basic tools that you're going to buy, and you're going to be able to refresh them for free, and then for gold, and then for diamonds, which I don't actually use. But it's pretty simple. You'll learn right away, and if you don't, someone will tell you, or I'm telling you right now, you buy all the champions. You buy anything with gold on these insignias, because especially the lower level ones, then you don't have to farm them, which can be tedious because you've surpassed that level quite some time ago, but you still need them to get through Ascensions 1 and 2 type of thing. And then you'll see some things like auto battles and stuff in here. This thing scales with your level. So I get purple, rare, and gold, and I actually get artifacts that are mythical. And that I like too. For example, if this was a mythical, I would absolutely buy it, because why not? It's an opportunity to just buy a gear. This one isn't, so I'm going to leave it alone. Especially at a 50% discount, why not? If it was a mythical. The guild shop gives you a couple of items that I think are pretty important: the gold bonus, the rare summons, and these demon soldiers, which is part of the guild wars, which is kind of a fun piece. The arena shop gives you a pretty standard. I've been buying the huge stamina, the rare summons. I did buy an XP today. Typically, I'm looking at legendary dust as the bulk of my purchases. You can see I've purchased 36 of them so far this week. And then finally, the awakening shop. This is something that's different. Once you get more champions than you need, or if you have level 3 heroes that you don't need, you can dismiss them, and they give you diamonds back. You can then use those diamonds to get stamina or to summon more champions. It's a nice cycle that does away with the, what am I supposed to do with this rare? Is it just a 3-star chicken? No, it's probably worth a little more than that, because it's worth diamonds. Now, for 4-star heroes, if you have dupes, and I don't think I currently do, so we won't be doing that. Once you get past A5 and you have additional champions over and above that, you can actually put them in here. And for example, I can put him in there. I won't. I don't know why he's not locked. Oh, he's a rare. That's why. He's not locked. What auto battle will we be in? Who cares? So as you can see, I can get this resource from him. I won't do it, but that'll allow you to spend things. I have not spent a single one yet. This is all just from dupes past the A5 on certain champions. During the 10X, I got about 12 hollows, so I had a lot of extra, and about 12 Idrils and about 12 of the fighter. I can't remember the name. So this, I think, I'm not sure what the right answer is here. I don't like that. I think if I have enough dupe epics, I should be able to buy an ancient summon or a soul for a legendary. I feel like that should happen, and it's a little unfortunate. I do think that, for example, if I wanted an Olog, maybe this is a good one. I get 50, so this costs me 8 dupes to get 1 ascension in the champion I want. That seems a little bit sus. Or it costs me 1 champion to get 50 auto battles or an experience boost. I'm not 100% sure I like that, but I'm not 100% sure I don't like it. I'm a little bit, I don't know what to do here. I don't know if this is good or bad, so I haven't spent any, but I imagine it is what it is. At least you can do something with your dupes other than just a 3 or a 4-star chicken. The next area of the game I want to talk about is doing dailies. Dailies, there's a lot of dailies here, but because with the raid, or with the pass, sorry, for calling it a raid pass, because of the pass, you actually get it at 3.5, which means a lot of your auto battles go way quicker, and it makes it a much more expedient experience. You also get nice bits of summons here, and you get freebies every day, which I think is overall pretty worth it. It gives you a lot of stuff. This game does give you a lot of stuff, and I do appreciate that. Dailies are simple. You can do a little, you can do a lot, depending on how casual or how experienced you want to be. If you want to play all day, you can spend some money, get more energy, and play all day. If you don't, if you just want to be casual, this will allow you to do that. That is absolutely 100% what you can do. We already talked about champions. Obviously, that's one of the biggest parts of the game. Visually stunning. Love the look of them. Love the breadth of champions and skills and the diversity. I love the classes. Think they need to up the pace a little bit. Maybe I'm only 30 days in, so maybe I'm over speaking, because this game, it is so important to get dupes that perhaps it doesn't need to have 500 champions right out the gate. Maybe it's good with just 150 to 200, and it can slow pace it with a couple every banner or every second banner, those sort of things. The whole summoning system, which we'll go after, which we'll talk about after, is so much better in my opinion, or at least on par to better as anyone else. It gives you the dopamine. It gives you the means that no matter what you pull, you're probably going to be excited. And when you get stuff you don't need, it gives you a way to turn those back into resources. I think that system is great. And from that perspective, my big thing, like I said, is I feel rares aren't usable enough. And I feel like there's not nearly enough epics in the game. Those are my two negatives. But the look and feel, which is why so many others, for me, like Awakened Chaos Era, perfect example, it's not good enough. Not in 2023. It needs to look like this at minimum to be able to compete for my money and my time. It's not like great gameplay won't attract me, but if there's two games with great gameplay, what's the tiebreaker? It's always going to be the visuals. The visuals is why Raid Shadow Legends in its genre is #1 and has made billions of dollars of profit. It's why this is off to a great start for Moonton, and they know what they're doing, and they saw something in this, and they're pushing it and doing very well. So next we got to talk about some of the negatives. For me, probably the biggest negative is the sheer... So there's a very hard block in this game. There's a very hard stop, and the hard stop is gear. And it happens when you want to push gear raid. Champions will stop you, but because you can get champions relatively easy in this game, for example, I was pushing hard, I was spending money, so I had more energy than most, but I also had more champions because I was pulling. I think if I was free to play, I'd be pulling fewer champions, but I'd also have less energy. So the pace would be, relatively the same in its linear progression. Where I find is the hard stop is once I got all the champions I needed, and once I was able to kind of farm some gear, I could get to level 18 where I am now. The level 18 to 19 jump in this game, and I would say by extension, the Nightmare 2 to Nightmare 3, especially Nightmare 3 top chest boss, and the artifact material raids, all these things that have these higher levels, there is a hard stop on gear. And the problem with that isn't the getting of gear, because getting of gear is just about time and energy. It's the gold. Leveling these up, and let me tell you, you could just as easily get very terrible rolls. And that means, like any other game, you have to keep going and going. And one of the things that I found in this game is that gold is such a premium. It is so hard to get gold. When you look at some of these are champions I use on the regular, and they have they have legendary gear rather than mythical gear at level 12, because you can't actually you have to have mythical gear to take them to 16. So, but it is so hard. I have rolled 100 pieces to 12 that are mythical that just had objectively worse stats than this. And I feel like what a hard stop for me to 28 days in as a spender. Maybe it would be 60 days, 50 days, 40 days, whatever that number is, depending on your level of spend, activity, and frankly, luck, and what champions you have. But wow, when gear becomes that roadblock, it becomes a roadblock for the masses. It becomes like the wall in the north. It is such a stop. And that drives me bonkers, because right now I can obtain enough gold to maybe level up 2 or 3 pieces. Now I can level 4, 8, 12 it all night long until I find those 6 or 7 or 8 pieces that, I mean, I rolled bad ones because I was just getting so frustrated and I just didn't have any gear. If it had one stat on it, some of these are wastes of silver. I get it, but that was my own frustration level, because what you ultimately need to find is stuff similar to these levels. Even this is kind of a little bit subpar, but you see the ones where it's getting some purple. There is also gold if it gets high enough, but like this is my best set of gear, and it's on Silas, more or less. Some of it's on Khamet as well, or on Razak. But it is so hard to get gear that rolls even good in what you need. Like this is not a great piece, but this is a pretty good piece. But it took so much gold just to get to this point. So I think that's a major drawback for me, is how much of a roadblock gold is. I don't even mind the gear system, because out of 100 pieces, I'm used to, out of 100 pieces, having 2 or 3 good pieces that actually roll well and you can actually use. And the further you go, the even fewer and fewer that is. I get that system. I'm okay with it. But I need to be able to farm more gold more consistently. The gold raids, yeah, gives you good gold. Doesn't give you great gold. And if you're doing that, you're sacrificing getting new gear or getting experience or the other places you need your energy. So your artifact material raid, those sort of things. So I do find that gold is a major bone of contention for me in this. The other thing is, and these are more things that I've seen that don't affect me, but I know they could affect your opinion of the game. This game is pay to win. Don't confuse yourself. Don't think otherwise. It doesn't have to matter, but if you're a person that plays a game to win and you have 2 things, you either win or you don't want to play, you're not going to want to play this. Or you're going to have a big bankroll and wail at it, my friends, cracking away. If you go into the arena and you see the ranking, and by the way, this was the first thing that jumped out at me. I'm friends with Deegs. Deegs and I go way back. He was in Raid Shadow Legends. He's a big spender. He spends a lot of money. I don't know if he sells himself. I don't know. He's a Boomer, right? Everybody knows Boomer, the sassy Raid Shadow Legends now here. These are guys that I knew, and that was my first. No, Mad Bobby. Bobby's account is one of the most known. Farfstoff, right? Like, he's the RSL helper. These are all big spenders. They have big bankrolls, and they spend a lot of money in the game. I don't want to speak for all of these guys, but that told me right away that in order for me, if I wanted to be on this list, I got to spend. And I'm not just saying spend. I got to spend like tens of thousands of dollars. And that's a bit frustrating because I always prefer games that have a path to being great through free-to-play, or at least through lower spend, that there's other ways to do it. It isn't all just about your bankroll. Clearly, and Mad, you know, everyone knows Mad from Raid Shadow Legends and from before that. I think they're originally from WoW. They're spenders, and they're going to have bankroll of hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time they're done playing this. Ron's another one. Sorry, I forgot you, Ron. So just be prepared going into this game, and this is what I've done with this. I'm not going to compete there. I did compete there for the first kind of 2 years of Raid, and I had to drop off because my bankroll wasn't anywhere near their bankroll. And especially as it now that I'm engaged and we're going on trips and we have better spend on our money than this game or Raid Shadow Legends. So be prepared for that. And same with the Guild Wars, which I think is a cool little feature in the, sorry, clicked the wrong one. For the guild wars here, I've already attacked mine. March to battle. You see this whole thing. You play as the enemy, and you set up your defense as the good guy. I love this system, but just know you're not going to be a top guild unless you're spending. Does it even show what the top are? No, platinum. No, it just tells you the words are. Is there not like the top of the Demon Soldier? Is it? No. Okay. I don't know. I'm sure there's somewhere that tells you who the big winners are. Let me tell you who the big winners are. They're Mad. They spend so much money, and I'm sure there's a couple of Eastern Bloc groups, either Russian or Ukrainian, and probably a Chinese or whatever, depending where this game is. I assume it's in China because I think Moonton is a Chinese brand. But it's a lot. It's a lot. And if you want to be #1 in guilds or #1 in arena, you're going to spend money. And if you're okay with not being #1 in those, this game is a heck of a lot of fun. But I did see, hey, look, there's a pay-to-win aspect that's clear. If you want to be competitive in player versus player at the top levels, you're going to spend. And the other big warning flag is the shop. The shop is like an echo chamber of everything Plarium does. Not everything Plarium does wrong, but a lot of the things Plarium does wrong. They have a diamond shop that's overpriced. They have regular bundles that are overpriced. They use a different currency just to try to devisualize that this is $10, this is $30. They put these obscene numbers here that no one's going to spend. The privilege cards are good value, the monthly cards good value, and then they put things like this that oh well, you don't see what it is. They use all the tactics to get you to spend. And although today's not the best example of it, when you get to the weekend you'll see some big ones. Like honestly, $30 for a realistic chance to pull 5 rares and 2 epics. Maybe you get another 10 pull here if you're going to use them that way. This is not, it's not good value. You think it's good value, and in the game, perhaps you can argue it is good value if these are worth $1 according to them, and if these are worth $10, that's 10, 20. This is worth another at least $10, and this is worth 5. So sure, but at the end of the day, nothing is worth it except for what you're willing to spend. And I see the same kind of predatory tactics, though admittedly not as obscene and not as grotesque. They're still there. They're still there. There was a $100 pack like this one here, the perfect example. $20 for 2, $30 for 2 with some other stuff. Oh, it's missing. There was one that was actually objectively had 2 and it cost more. Like, it just made no sense to me. So watch the shop. If you plan to be a spender and you plan not to spend a lot of money, take a lot of time, watch a lot of content creators, join Discords, have the conversation, because you can get caught in your own world where you think, oh, this is worth it, but it really isn't. And unless you're really kind of paying attention, and unless you know that it isn't worth it, then you might end up spending more money on things that really don't progress you that much. This is a game to make money, and there is a pay to win. So overall, not a fan of their shop, not a fan of the pay to win aspects of the game, but I think overall, those are going to be in all these mobile games. This has a lot to offer. I think this is way better for free to play than a lot of games are. I would say it's slightly above Raid. I think Raid has a really good, if I were to play the game, and I'm playing a free-to-play series, as you know, but if I were to have never played anything and just started free-to-play and never spent a dime, I think I'd be okay in my bubble with Raid. I'd be having fun. And I think this is even more so because the breadth of different things you can do, especially when you're limited on your resources and only can do so much, so you don't feel like you're just doing the same thing over and over again. I think this is really great for free to play. I think it's really great for low spend. I think you can spend what you feel you can, set yourself a monthly budget, stick to that budget, and just like anything else, the summoning, which is the last place I want to talk about, this can give you the same level of dopamine. It's fun. It's exciting. They have banners all the time. They have special 10x, 2x. They have all the time. Go join, subscribe to Fastidious, and watch his videos on the drop rates of champions. That all champions are not created equal in this game. Now, they tell you some of that. For example, the drop rates within this group is 0.04 for a legendary without any type of boosted summons. But within this category, there's a greater chance of getting some of these champions than others. And that's a project that he's working on with, I can't remember, I apologize, I don't remember who's helping him with it. It's an invaluable resource to just understand why you're getting a lot of Nyx or a lot of Shamir or a lot of Crack, but you're getting no Zillatus or Salazars or Viernas, for example. It's really interesting, and I think it's important for us to understand and know when we're pulling these, to do so with our eyes wide open. So that's my 2 cents on the summoning, but I do love the summoning. The shards, their fusions as they call it, the best implementation I've ever seen. I was able to get 2 copies of them because I spent a little money, had the resources. If I didn't, I would have been able to easily get a copy free to play. Some free to play with some good resource management could have also gotten 2 copies of them. I think that aspect is one of the best things they do. So my final overall thoughts, my honest opinion on this game, it is the first game in 4 years, excuse me, that I legitimately think in this space of collector game that competes with Raid. I think it competes for my time. It keeps me excited, even though it is a repetitive game. Like everything else comes down to a grind. There's enough diversity and the breadth of different tactic and technique in the areas like Void Rift, and you can create these brand new maps. It's not just the rinse repeat in different areas, that it is going to hold my attention a lot longer. So much so that, like I mentioned at the start of this video, I do plan to make a new channel, Watcher of Realms. I hope you join it. It's going to be posted at the end of this video. You'll see the yellow, the black smiley face is this channel. The yellow one is for that channel. I hope you subscribe and follow me there. To monetize it, I need 500 views, or sorry, 500 subs and so many hours. I'm less worried about monetization of the channel, and I'm just more about you guys enjoying and watching it. So please head over there and subscribe and just watch my videos, and feel free to comment what you think I could do, what you'd like to see, what sort of things you want to watch. I am an open book right now. I'm a new content creator for this game, and I would love to get your feedback and opinion on what you'd like to see best in the game. Play the game, have fun with it. I wholly recommend it. And to me, I give this... Raid did something special 4 years ago, and it really caught my attention. When I wasn't really in that world, I was playing one of the Walking Dead ones, No Man Land or whatever. It was sponsored by AMC and The Walking Dead, The Talking Dead. Loved that game. Totally different, more like a tower, like a city builder defense type of thing. It's been 4 years since I've had anything capture my attention like Raid did, and so far this game has done that. It's done that to the same level Raid had. It remains to be seen whether it can hold my attention over the years, but it's off to a great start. With great graphics, great gameplay, diverse, and a development team that seems to earnestly listen to the feedback given to them, this has the potential of being a game of the ages. I hope you join it. I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, use my link. Actually, I should do that. Does it show it? Yeah. Use this code and you can give me referral awards and yourself, and we can all get more rewards and be happy and joyous. But honestly, I think this is a game that I'm going to enjoy and play for some time. I'm making a channel. I hope you do too. And to kick that off, my special guest on the other channel, by the time you've watched this, that video will be live, will be none other than my longtime personal friend. By personal, I mean over the internet, Ivy Lee Gaming. She is one of the mainstays of Watcher of Realms. She is a juggernaut in this game. She's in on the ground floor, and I am ecstatic and thrilled that she's going to join me for my first exclusive video on the new channel. I hope you enjoy it and watch it. We're also going to have a Vierna Summons video this weekend on that channel. And I hope to talk to two other content creators who we've been batting back and forth. That's Jay Gigs, who might be on this channel or the other one. Maybe both. I don't know where we're going to end up. I don't know when we're going to actually connect. He lives in Australia. That's halfway across the world. The time zones are crazy. And also Odd One, who lives, as he is married to, Ivy. And I'm getting up early just to be able to have an afternoon chat with her. So... But I promise you, we're going to try to get all three of them on the channel and more. I hope to do this more often. I hope you enjoy it, and I see you over there. But it's been an hour, so it's time to call it a day. This game, play it. That's my simple one. It's as good as it gets in the genre. It looks like it's got the right mindset to be a staying power. As long as the company behind it, the developers, stay the course, maybe speed up the heroes a little bit, and do monetization to a level that doesn't ruin the game for everyone else, I think this should be a game to last for years to come. I want to thank you for watching. I appreciate you. And as always, please be kind, be safe, and we'll see you in the next video.